Bienvenue, my Boneyard Marauders. It's Mansant back at you with today's installment of the Best of 3 series, this time versus the one and only Oldhim. Now, before we dive into the deck analysis here, go ahead and please, if you haven't, hit that subscribe button because we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, which is just fantastic considering this is just something I do for fun. So big shout out to all of you who've clicked that button. I really deeply appreciate it, and it's led to some really cool things with this channel, like the upcoming spoiler card that I will get to be revealing for Everfest. So once again, thank you. Now let's take a look at Oldhim. So Oldhim is a hero that's really strong in this metagame because he's very punishing against these aggro decks that don't pitch a lot back into their deck. And that's because Oldhim is a hero that is leaning more on the defensive side just by the way his hero ability works, along with cards like Rampart of Ramshead and Crown of Seeds. All of these let him conserve resources in his own deck and help him pitch deck for a stronger second cycle while still blocking very effectively. So against these aggro decks that just dump their entire hands into trying to present damage, he's going to counter that very well by actually setting up his own deck to be stronger than theirs because they're not pitching anything. They're not planning for any kind of stronger late game cycle. So Levia actually has a really cool playstyle into this, and that's because Levia has a recursion engine with Howl from Beyond and Ghostly Visit that is pretty much unique to Levia. Chain can do a little bit of this, but Levia does it in a way that Oldhim absolutely hates. And that's because even when Oldhim is trying to go defensive, you can just keep recurring these cards like Howl from Beyond by playing them from your banish zone, banishing them with your attacks, and then replaying them again, sometimes 2 times in the same turn, to just have unrelenting amounts of damage that just give Oldhim no way to put himself back into the game. The turns that he does try to do something strong, like an Endless Winter or a Command and Conquer or even an Oaken Old, you of course have Carrion Husk, and this really just cements the that kind of forward momentum that you have in these games. He just doesn't even get that one turn to try to get back at you because of the Husk. So I think this matchup is one of the best for Levia actually, but you have to be so careful with playing greedy and graveyard management because even though you have these strong recurring packages like Howl from Beyond, it is not a 6 power. And in this deck, you're actually not running Deep Rooted Evil because it's a pretty greedy card to include across all your other matchups in Blitz. So at some point, you actually will run out of your really strong attacks. So you need to spread them out. Just don't go too heavy blocking with them because remember, you want some gas still in your second cycle. And the really strong cards you're looking for there are having pitched things like Hungering Slaughter Beast because it's a yellow anyway, pitching things like the Doomsday, the Convulsions, even stacking up your Barragings, the blues and the reds on top of a Writhing Beast Hulk can all do things that are really strong in closing the game against an Oldhim. And then of course you can always be cheeky with Reckless Swing, but be careful because he can Crown of Seeds and negate one of that damage. So overall, I'd say this is a pretty favorable matchup for Levia, but it requires a really patient game plan and just playing as not greedy as possible, let's say. Now you will roll Scabs a little bit more than normal because he's going to be passing large hands into you. So also this is a matchup where you just hope to not get too unlucky. You don't want to roll 1s into 1s, right? We never want that to happen. So with that said, let's jump into the best of 3 and see how it went. Welcome all to the gameplay portion of the Best of 3 series here versus Oldhim today. And forewarning, this Best of 3 took like 2.5 hours to play to completion. So I've trimmed it all down for us so that we're going to watch one of the games in full and then cut to the end states of the other 2 games here. And it took a while because, you know, Oldhim is a deck that tends to play really slow. You need to have a lot of reps on it to play it into completion, especially when you're playing against a Levia that is not keen on killing itself to blood debt. I mean, these games can actually go to time. So David, not 100% comfortable on the deck, so he was taking a little bit longer to play through here, so the games did tend to go over time. But trimmed it down for us, so we'll enjoy what we can and still see the proper outcome of the best of 3. So speaking of, David on the left, new player to the stream here, one of my favorite people to play Fab with because he's a very avid learner and is always looking to discover a new hero that he falls in love with, and he's currently on an Oldhim kick, so it was nice to get this game featured. Now, he does neglect to use the sigil on my turn 0 here, so slight mistake on that end, but as we see what happened on my side there, got a little too sidetracked. I did win the die roll and elect to go first because I want the ability to potentially have a way to fill grave as early as turn 1 there without Oldhim getting that arsenal advantage for free. Because Oldhim with an arsenal is really, really strong. It's just constantly going to enable the cycling that Crown of Seeds allows for the deck. So it's really important to just try to, if they don't have an arsenal, that's when you apply the extra pressure to try to never get them on that front foot where they're cycling that crown again, because that's just free negation on their end. So unfortunately for me, the play on that first turn was to try to set up an attack in the arsenal because I had a Blood Rush in hand. So I arsenaled a Writhing Beast Hulk in the hopes that holding that Blood Rush in hand would allow me to actually play it as early as this turn. But I've actually double drawn Blood Rush, and double drawing Blood Rush in this kind of matchup is terrible because you want them both to gain maximum value, and drawing 2 in one hand means you're most likely either going to get a really weak Blood Rush because you're going to have to pitch one Blood Rush to pay for the next, and that's just very inefficient, or you're going to have just a slower game trying to pitch them back into your deck but spreading them out because of course you don't want them double stacked. So I was very unfortunate to double draw there. So we go into my turn then, and like I said, I really can't go in with the Blood Rush here. So I'm trying to roll Scabskins to try to have ways to just use these cards in hand for maximum damage while I spread out the Blood Rushes. So fortunately, just going to be able to swing Mandible Claws. Nothing fantastic here. But he decides to take it, so I'm pretty fine with that, because free damage on Oldhim is free damage. Always good to get. It does mean he's probably got a pretty aggressive hand, and of course I'm hoping it's not for a really strong Terra Sunder attack, but he elects to actually pitch a Terra Sunder to swing in with Oaken Old, double fused on his turn 2, which is crazy. And when they try to hit you this hard, sometimes you can just let it happen and put the cards back in the deck. But I've seen that my Blood Rush is on the bottom, and I really don't want this next Blood Rush to end up on the bottom of the deck as well. That would just be devastating. So a commitment to using Husk here means that I now am once again able to spread out the Blood Rushes a bit more. I'm actually probably going for a Blood Rush play here because I've got a blue, a Beast Within, and the Blood Rush. So this is really strong for me to try to have a really aggressive turn into his turn where he was a little bit greedy and took a little bit of damage. So discarding Beast Within is fantastic. Of course, I haven't stacked the deck to my exact liking yet, so I probably am going to mill a little bit, which I do on the Barraging Beatdown, which is an unfortunate card to see gone because it's so critical to closing out these games. But I do get to add an Endless Mod to hand, which means now I'm playing into this Blood Rush with 3 cards in hand and that arsenal to attack. And one of the beauties of Beast Within on your Blood Rush in this matchup is that Oldhim has this card Blizzard, which can tax your Go Again cards, make you pay 2 or lose Go Again. So if he's got a card like that, you really want to make sure you have those extra resources in hand to still play through these Blood Rush turns. And that's exactly what he's got here. That Blizzard is going to hurt me. I have to get rid of this blue just to have it keep Go Again. I get to resolve the eye here, where I've got a Red Dread Screamer and I believe a... I didn't quite see what the other one is here. But seeing that they were reds, I think it was a Boneyard Marauder actually, seeing that they were reds and knowing that I have that other Blood Rush on the bottom, I want to put those cards closer together, so I go ahead and with the opt, put them on the bottom. That's one of the really strong effects with Eye of Ophidia, is that you get to peep your deck and decide where those cards go. And sometimes, of course, if they're blues, keep them on top. But when they're the reds, you don't have to keep them on top. You can put those on the bottom and set yourself up to have a stronger second cycle of your deck, because you've now put those reds on the bottom for free. You didn't sacrifice an aggressive turn by pitching reds inefficiently back to the bottom for later. You've done all that for free. So I absolutely love Eye of Ophidia. I'm very fortunate to have the card. You know, it's very expensive. Not everyone has it. But I was able to get it with a really good trade. So as of now, it's going to be in probably all my Levia builds. So I'm coming in for the Claw. And these breakpoints are normally something that Oldhim has a really easy time around. So he blocks an exact 5 on this because of the crown, the shield, and then a block 3 from hand. But I unfortunately, with that blizzard that he played, I no longer have the ability to pitch into the second claw and then the writhing. So that blizzard saved him basically 5 damage. That is incredible. And these are the really tough cards to play through. So I am going to keep a card at least to Arsenal here, unless he decides to Ice Pitch. But if he Ice Pitches, then he will be taking quite a bit of damage. So that last card in hand, I believe, is a red Deadwood. So it's a decent Arsenal target. I mean, it doesn't block anyway, so I'm fine with it going there. And when I played this Writhing Beast Hulk, it actually did not hit on the Banish effect, so it doesn't have Dominate, but I'm not really worried. My blood debt's barely ticked up, so I'm just coming in for 8 and pretty happy with that number. So he's going to go ahead and cover up 7 total on that 8. Wow, look at that. That was a Blood Rush with an Arsenal and 3 cards in hand, and I dealt 1 damage. Oh, there's not many decks that can defend as well as Oldhim. I mean, there's literally 0. Oldhim's the best, and you can see why. I mean, I did miss about 5 damage, but it's because he played the Blizzard. It wasn't me getting unlucky or anything. I guess I could have drawn more blues or yellows, and that would have been nice, but you just play through what you can. So I actually did ping myself for Blood Debt, which was a mistake. I had played the Beast Within, which would have turned it off that turn, but forgot in the moment. It doesn't really come to play in this game, thank goodness. You hate to see when little mistakes do. So the good thing, though, about Oldhim full blocking like that is he's going to draw up and pass back into you, and he's not going to have the card to put in Arsenal. So without putting something in Arsenal, I'm really happy here because now I have some freedom to try to push my way back into the game, be really aggressive. And when they pass these larger hands into you, one of the best ways to do that is roll Scab Skins. So the die went off camera there, but I believe it was like a 4 or 5. Obviously, I ended up with 2 action points. So if I can stay on the aggressive and really force his hand down, the more turns I can keep him without that Arsenal, the better, because it becomes really inefficient for him to pitch for the Rampart, and he doesn't get to cycle with Crown either. So really strong to keep playing through all these defense tricks he has here. Because you just want to win the whittle war, as I say. You won't really chunk him for a huge amount. It's going to be a whittle down, and then try to set up some endgame that closes the game for sure. So the Gambler's Gloves popping on the 1. Like I said, this is kind of the opening. I need the tempo. Rolling a 1 like this is really, really going to set me behind. So it is worth the Gambler's Gloves there. And it actually, funny enough, helps me because I needed 3 in the graveyard anyway. So going to come in with the Hungering Slaughter Beast for 7, and he does kick that blue Staunch up and blocks that 7. So, gosh, this is becoming really hard to push through still, but at least with that kick Staunch response, he only has the 1 card left in hand, and I do have a way to present a really tall attack again. So there I am coming in with the red Deadwood that I'd set up in Arsenal from last turn. And I do draw discard of 6, which is, of course, is great because I want to fill up this graveyard, but I'm not going to resolve the banish effect on my own graveyard because I don't have any of the recursion pieces or misses to get out. So just going to hit one of his cards, get it out of there. I know the deck doesn't run Remembrance. We're just using Hometown TCG's Oldhim list. But of course, yeah, always better to trim their graveyard than your own. So coming in for 8. And he does have a very, very efficient block there in the Sink Blow. So only deals 4 there, but that's what I said. I mean, it's the chip war. A lot of other decks just wouldn't have blocked that much and would have taken a huge hit. But, Oldhim's win con is to block you out and whittle you down. So I'm able to set up another attack in Arsenal there, though. I think it's a red Hungering. So that is good news to me because I want to just keep stringing together these attacks, and as soon as I find these recursion pieces, those banish 3s become really strong. So in my hand right now, we've got at least one of the recursion pieces. I see the Ghostly Visit, there's the Fate Foreseen, and I believe maybe a Dread Screamer or 2. Unfortunately, this game, the camera was a bit tilted. And of course, I still don't have the lights. The lights will be in for next video, which, by the way, will be chain. So quality is going to get just improved by a ton for next video. Lighting is going to help the quality of the camera recording. It's going to help legibility overall. And I'll be sure to fix the camera tilt because it is unfortunately not making my hand cam super useful this game. So I'm going to try extra hard on the commentary here to make sure that we understand everything what's going through my head as the Levia player. And of course, try to keep it a bit interesting, keep it lively, because Oldhim games aren't necessarily the most interesting. So once again here, choosing to roll scab skins because I have the hand, the large hand with Arsenal into his 0 arsenal cards. So that is my opportunity to, like I said, keep pushing. But unfortunately, with the scab skins roll, I don't roll double action points. And you know, at this point, it is just risky overall because I have used Gambler's Gloves. So once that blood debt starts getting higher, the ability to just try on a Gambler's roll becomes a route to just lose the game, right? But as of now, my blood debt was on like 2 or 3, so it's really not that big a deal if I roll the 1. Of course, it sets me behind, but it's not game over. So he is going to block 7 again. He loves covering up these hungering slaughter beasts with perfect numbers. So with that 1 action point, I don't get the ability to do anything more than that. So I just pass my turn back over. But I'm keeping the Ghostly Visit in hand, as well as arseling a Dread Screamer. And this is actually, I know it's a mistake. So with those 2 cards left in hand, the Ghostly Visit and the Dread Screamer, I should have actually arsenaled the Ghostly Visit. Because of course I'm thinking greed-wise, oh, I want to just go ahead and block with the Ghostly Visit and banish it. So that is a route that if I commit to, I probably should just go ahead and do. But then the greedy plays continued where I drew a Sink Below and was able to just cover up the Winter's Wail entirely instead of having to use a piece of equipment as well. So that messed up my Ghostly plan. And then this is going to mess up the way I have it set up with which card is in Arsenal, which card is in hand. By putting that Dread Screamer in Arsenal, now I'm very susceptible to an Ice Pitch to put the Ghostly Visit back on top. Whereas if I'd put the Ghostly Visit in the Arsenal and the Dread Screamer in hand still, then I would not be susceptible to the Ice Pitch here. So I think I got ahead of myself in like which lines were better. The Sink Below threw me off and this just all started to fall apart. But I also had to play the Sigil out to have 3 cards to go ahead and banish for the cost of Dread Screamer, so I couldn't actually keep an extra card in hand to put back on top of the deck instead of the Ghostly, so I'm going to get super punished for playing it this way, which is unfortunate. And of course, he's going to have a very easy turn covering it up because my turn is just 6 damage. He can 100% control the damage output I have this turn because he can read that I have 1 resource left. I don't have a Ghostly Visit banished yet. I have only 1 card in hand, and of course my weapons cost 2. So David has full information here that an Ice Pitch just destroys my ability to do anything with that go again. So I am going to be very hurt when this comes through. Yep, and there he goes, Ice Pitching. There goes the Ghostly, and the other problem with Ghostly going back on top is that it is another card that doesn't turn off Blood Debt that I know I'll be drawing, and at this point my Blood Debt is racking up just a little bit. I'm up to 5, so these turns where if I draw away that doesn't turn off Blood Debt, I will start to be in a pickle. So that was just a pretty bad turn cycle on my end. And David might not know how much he hurt me, but he hurt me a lot. That one was rough, that turn cycle. But so David continues with unlike me, on the contraire, he has a pretty strong turn here where he just has the Winter's Wail that will threaten the Frostbite and is able to set up that Arsenal again. So I kept him without Arsenal for like 3 turns, but now he's got it. This is going to be even harder to crack through. He's barely committed his armor, and I am able to block, though, with cards I want. I was able to block with 2 recursion pieces with that Ghostly Visit and that Howl from Beyond. So because I know that it was always going to banish the Ghostly Visit there because of the Banish 3 cost, and those 3 cards being the only ones in my Banish zone, I made the call to go ahead and roll Scabskins because it always equals the 4 damage there with the replayability of Ghostly Visit. But the other reason it's really important to try to get that Ghostly through here is that it helps fill up my graveyard to 2. If I'm able to play that Ghostly, right, and of course the Hungering's played as well, that will put me at 2 cards in graveyard, and then I can force a third, at least with Hope Merchant's Hood, if not with another one of my cards that's instantly burnable. Like, of course, I now have the Howl set up. So even though without Gambler's Gloves it's risky, I really, really need to set up that extra card in the graveyard right now. So weighed the risks, deemed it worth it, and was rewarded. And now David back on the defense here. See how that extra card in Arsenal just lets him get really ahead of these defense turns, where he can now pitch a card to cycle with Crown, and that same card's cost can go to his Rampart, sometimes his equipment pieces like we see with the Ironhide. He just gets an entire card ahead and just gets to block at least 2 free damage. It's pretty gross. So he's going to toss everything in to block the Hungering, and only take 1 on the Ghostly because the Command & Conquer only blocks 3. So once again, I'm chipping, but man, as you can tell, it is not a lot of damage yet, and it is unlikely to ever be a ton of damage at once. So got to play carefully. Can't waste too many resources. I'm also very happy to have seen the Howl from Beyond and be able to start recycling it this early and this consistently, because I've got absolute control over my graveyard right now. As long as I cast that next Howl, I know for sure that I'll be hitting it. And yes, this is what we're going to see here. So now this is great because I've hit that point where I don't have Gambler's Gloves, but I still want to use these 4-card hands really efficiently. And Howl from Beyond is going to let me do that, where I don't have to keep rolling Scabskins a lot. So this is fantastic to see on my end. I get to play the Howl, and then we're going to come through with an attack here. Let's see what it is. It is that Endless Maw. Oh yeah. Endless Maw is fantastic because it's already a really efficient card at pitching a blue to come in for most of the time 9, but this time it's pitching a blue to come in for 12 and hitting those 2 recycle pieces. And this is where we see I had that 1 extra resource floating, so I could have rolled Scabskins, but this is where the loss of tempo would have been absolutely massive, because I at least still had a way to have an above average turn, being able to come in for 12 and being able to arsenal a card on top of that. So Scabskins not quite worth it, because rolling that 1 at this point would be very, very devastating. And it gets tough, you know. I like to have heuristics about when you roll Scabskins, but once the Gambler's Gloves is gone, sometimes it's just a feeling that this time I won't roll a 1. And sometimes you're right, and sometimes you are very, very wrong. But at least in this matchup, Oldhim's not that aggressive to where you probably don't just lose the game from taking 1 large chunk of blood debt. It's really 2 large chunks of blood debt in this kind of game because of the low amount of pressure that he puts on you, especially when you're able to block one of his really big turns with the Carrying Husk like we saw. So he's able to block my entire attack on this, which, how ridiculous is this? He has the Pulse of Eisenloft on this defense as well, so the Turn Timber is not only fused, he doesn't only get to use Crown and Rampart, he gets to pitch that Pulse to block a total of 12 and make me top that card. So, wow, defensive package of Oldhim is just looking ridiculous. And now he gets that arsenal back on top. And this is actually something that a lot of Oldhim players will do into you, is just refuse to swing with Winter's Wail, because it can kind of help you fill graveyard. Instead, they'll value arsenaling the card over swinging most of the time, because you taking Blood Debt is a win condition for the Oldhim. In fact, if every deck into Oldhim had this loss condition of being able to kill themselves the longer the game goes on, I mean, gosh, Oldhim would just be like the best deck in the game. But he doesn't have that against everybody, he just has that against us. So there we go with a Scabskins roll. And this is when I really have to go for it because I only have that one card in graveyard. I need to fill it or I just don't have a turn anyway. So I roll and I'm rewarded. So that way I can start filling grave. And what we see here is just pitching that yellow Hungering Slaughter Beast, which is a great card to see back into the deck because it's a way to turn off Blood Debt in that second cycle. So starting to refill the grave here, I'll have 2 in grave, and then I'm able to cast that Doomsday and create Plasma Vet, putting 3 cards in graveyard as well. So super, super strong. And with this Boneyard Marauder that is going to be coming in for 9 here, followed by a Plasma Fet, I'll be coming in for 15. Now, this is going to hurt my graveyard setup just a little bit, but I will have the Howl back in Banish to hopefully top it off again. As long as Hope Merchants is up, if I end my turn with 2 cards with 1 card in graveyard, with the Howl at least playable, and the Hope Merchants up, then I'll never be completely out of luck in terms of refilling it. So this Boneyard coming in for 9 is just fantastic. It's a huge amount of pressure to then just follow up by Plasma Fet, because you want these Plasma Fet turns to normally be more than just summon a Plasma Fet, swing Plasma Fet, because that's not threatening enough, and normally your opponent will be able to keep cards and just kill the Plasma Fet immediately. But if your turn can also be a large attack and the Plasma Fet, then they're really, really, really under pressure to take damage and keep cards to kill Plasma Fet. So that's what we're going to see here, I believe, because while David does have a lot of block available to him, he's got the Sink Below, he's got the Rampart and Crown, he definitely wants to keep, he's got a Command and Conquer as well, I do believe, and he does have the Command and Conquer there, and he definitely wants to keep that to kill the Plasma Fet. Otherwise, this is a lost condition for him now. If I can just somehow keep stringing together Go-Agains or extra action points, the Plasma Fet will just be a huge, huge value machine. So he's going to block a fair bit, blocking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on that 9. He'll still take 1 here, which is fantastic. There's that little chip war. And then I do get to swing for 6. So now we see where the damage is really going to land, because if he wants to kill Plasma Fet, this connects. Very, very happy to see 6 damage go through. This is probably the largest single chunk of damage you'll see in these kinds of games. And Dave is, of course, hoping that that is true, and it likely is. So he's going to take a large chunk of 6, but if he keeps the 2 cards there, I'm understanding that Plasma Fet is not living the turn. There's no way he keeps 2 cards and doesn't kill Plasma Fet. And Oldhim actually has a couple cards that'll do this for just 2 cards, like the Oakenold. He can pitch a blue and can just swing it. If he's got the Seismic, then like Endless Winter can do it. Like I think he's got, like a Disable or something that can also do it. So with Command and Conquer, he gets to set up the Seismic, but I really doubt he's going to make good use of it. It's just a way to be resource efficient. So back into my turn, I find another instant castable, which is great because it lets me fill up the graveyard without having to use a card like Hope Merchant's Hood. So here we go. I'm going to get back to that perfect number of 3 cards in graveyard by recycling the Howl. So with Howl, Sigil, and the Boneyard from last turn, here we go. Actually, I was set up really well to not miss on Banish if I played a Banish 3, but I only come in with the Deadwood Rumbler there, and wow, that is some unfortunate, I would say luck, but it's actually not luck. If we remember that I purposefully set up my Blood Rush down there, if I'd paid a little bit more attention to the fact that I double drew the blue Deadwood Rumblers, that would have told me that's the first Deadwood Rumbler that I pitched on turn 1 to swing Claws, and then that would have told me my next card on top of deck is Blood Rush, because that's what I pitched next. So that's actually completely my fault. I can't blame it on luck. I just was not tracking my second cycle carefully enough. So that really should have been a Hope Merchant's turn, because I knew that that's how the top of the deck was stacked. So I don't turn off Blood Debt. I still come in for 9. But even though that leads to a little bit of chip damage, I'm going to take a huge chunk of blood there. I take 9 myself. And now it's not like I'm under threat of lethal to anything that David does, but now I'm truly under lethal of blood debt. So I just need these bad turns to calm down a bit. I need to get back on the aggressive here, and we're in a decent spot for it because he doesn't have that arsenal card. So then just going to tank that Winter's Wail hit because I need to be aggressive. And with that, I have Ophidia. Of course, very easy to break Frostbites. It's just a lovely blue. So the Dread Screamer is going to allow me to banish here, and there are unfortunately exactly 3 misses in here, so it is possible I just straight lose the game on this. It's not super likely, and of course I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but it can happen, and that's because of just a very poor control of the graveyard by me on that last turn. So last turn just overwhelmingly punishing. And I don't recycle the Howl, which is very unfortunate, but at least I recycled the Ghostly Visit, so I've got that as an option following up on the Dread Screamer here. And coming in for 6, very threatening attack because he, of course, can't take it anymore. He does need to interact and block, and he's more than happy to do that, most likely. And he doesn't know what I'm going to follow it up with, because in theory I can actually follow it up with something as big as potentially an Endless Maw, because I've got 2 cards in graveyard now, and I can always close the combat chain to add an extra card to graveyard. So David's not entirely sure how big my next attack can be here. I'm actually not entirely sure either. I don't see my hand. So I'm going to guess it's probably nothing more than the Ghostly Visit, but we'll see. So he's going to full block the 6, and he is going to commit equipment, and this is something I have to chip through anyway, because he still had quite a bit up. But now he's only going to have the 1 block left on the tech plate after this, and the 1 block left on the Crater Fist. So that is looking at least a little better for my position. And then on my end, I believe, what is that, a Boneyard Marauder? No, I don't think that's Boneyard Marauder. I can't quite see. I apologize, guys. This is because of the camera tilt. It is not allowing me to see the angle my hand is at. Okay, it was a Boneyard Marauder. Ah, my eyes didn't deceive me. So I get to pitch the Boneyard Marauder to at least come in with the Ghostly Visit here for 4. So he can't use Crown because he doesn't have a card in Arsenal, but he could have spent that extra resource on the Rampart if I had closed the combat chain. So that was the consideration there. That's why I didn't do it, because it just would have been an extra 2 free damage for him to block, because, you know, I did have the option close the combat chain to play the Boneyard instead. But not going to do that. Playing the Ghostly also fills my graveyard a bit better. And I'm now set with at least a blue Dread Screamer in Arsenal. So it's some form of go again. It's not a crazy powerful one, but as long as David doesn't have an Arsenal, then coming in with 2 4s can become pretty problematic for him, because if I come in with something like 2 4s across a turn with his normal setup of having an Arsenal card, he can pitch 1 card to be able to Crown and 3 block, and then Rampart and 3 block across something like a Blue Dread Screamer into a Ghostly Visit. But without an Arsenal, he at least doesn't have that. So he's going to decide to swing into me because I'm getting close to actually being able to just die to his hammer swings. So he takes the opportunity there. Swing into me. I'm going to take it because, of course, presenting 4 damage when I'm at 5 isn't lethal. And I know he doesn't have any cheeky ways to end the game, like something like a Reckless Swing like I have. So I'm relatively safe to go down to 1 as long as I feel that my turn is good with the cards I have in hand, powerful enough to end the game. And I'm really hoping there with a large hand to hit that Howl from Beyond, so I have extra resources to pump into it. But on that Blue Dread Screamer, I do miss it. Of course, I don't miss turning off Blood Debt, so that is quite nice. And it is going to have go again. But I don't get to hit the Howl. But in my hand right now, I believe I have a blue Convulsions, a blue Barraging, and a blue Barraging, I believe is what's in hand. And the Barragings, when you double stack them like that, which I did earlier in the game, have really cute uses. And this is when they can come in big, right? So now we see that he's trying to force my hand to trim my capabilities of using this large hand, but all I really need is to bring his hand down far enough as well that my barragings gain a ton of value. So of course, with the Ice Pitch, I don't get to double barraging, but all I need here is to be able to play one, pitch one to come in for claws for 5, which will most likely overwhelm his ability to block and live. So I'm just making sure that that's the line. Okay, it wasn't a blue Convulsions, it was that red Endless Maw. But here we go. See the line now. I get to go ahead, close the combat chain here because I'm going to play the barraging, so it does that anyway. I play that blue barraging, get to banish one of his guards. Heck yeah. And +2 on that next attack, which of course counts the weapons here as well. So I'm coming in for 5. And he did have the ability here to potentially block with 3 and then the Crater Fist to go down to just 1. But look at that, I did snipe him. The possibilities there were either he gets stuck with a 2-block or Defensive Action can't pay for, and he couldn't pay for it. So that was game. So pretty decent game 1. You saw what happens when you roll a 1. You don't lose, but it sucks. But here we go, jumping into what game 2 looked like. We're going to jump into closer to the end of the game here, I believe like the last 2 turn cycles, just because these games went for so long. But as we can see, this game 2 was really tight. David really had me down, and this is actually because I had, I think it was a turn where I just whiffed a blood debt and took something like 15. It was ridiculous. So I took a huge hit of blood debt somewhere in the mid game, but I haven't really gotten punished with the Gambler's Gloves yet, but my deck is incredibly thin. We are getting so tight in this end game here, and I'm getting a little worried too because I know I have set up some strong plays, like I stacked the Beast Within and stacked the Blood Rush, which is what I've got in hand here. But the issue becomes I don't actually know where the blue 6s are, or any of the 6s are still in my deck. So when I pitch on the Blood Rush with the eye, I'm hoping, of course, I see a 6. If I don't, then I'm going to put him on the bottom. And the card is like, the deck is quite literally like 6 cards. So I'm pretty certain that now on the Beast Within, I will see a 6 soon enough, but I don't. What we see is a miss, and then, of course, the blue 6 pops up. But I die to myself, not even blood debt, but I die to the Beast Within. So that was perhaps a little bit overzealous of a play on my end. But the game was getting so tight, I was running out of gas pretty horribly there. So I did lose that game. And then we go into game 3 here, where the game's looking quite a bit better for me. This game, actually, I rolled a 1 into a 1, and that was quite bad. My gamblers did nothing for me, so I took a pretty big hit of blood debt early on for that. But I've still been able to have a pretty decent lead in the game here, and that's because Blasphemfett has stuck around for a long time. We're talking like 5-6 turns on Blasphemfett, which has been terrific. And I haven't had the safety of Gambler's Gloves to roll for it very often, but by him being there, I've at least had the safety net to never miss on the blood debt. And he has been coupled on quite a few turns by other Gogan cards like Dread Screamers and like just rolling Scabs every now and again to keep the pressure on and just not allow David a way to kill him. So I'm hoping that this will eventually lead to just endgame lockout, but it is very hard to push through and deal that last 1 damage. So we've been at this state for quite a while now, actually, where everything I throw into David, he's just fully blocking out. And the other problem in this kind of scenario is I'm actually running out of 6s at all in my deck because I've swung with Blasphemfett long enough that I'm actually down a lot of attacks. So there's almost a downside to having Blasphemfett out that much. Yes, it saves you, but if you're not winning the game as well, you are running out of your good cards. So I'm going to roll scabs here because I really need a way to just end the game. But I don't have anything going. The other reason to roll scabs there, of course, is Bloodlet was already off because I led with a Blue Dread Screamer there, so it was safe to roll scabs. And if I had rolled the double actions, then of course I could also come in with a Ghostly Visit on that extra action point and resource that I would have had. So I don't get it, and I'm not going to have many opportunities to roll scab skins ever again either, so that was unfortunate that it just didn't come through for me at the end there. But at least with the pressure I'm still putting on, I know that I'm not going to die to David's attacks. It's just really, how do I make sure I don't die to Blood Debt with such a poor graveyard? So he's going to fully block. I know he won't have a turn. So we're just going to have another situation where he just draws passes, and I'll just try to play through with a 5-card hand and Plasma Fed up. But really, if I don't have these go-agains, then I'm not going to be able to maximize the damage I can deal. And I'm actually lacking a 6 in graveyard as well right now, which is the really scary part. I can cast that Howl, sure. I can throw something else in graveyard, sure. But I'm not going to turn off Blood Debt that way. And I'm not going to be able to play a Dread Screamer and have it gain go again that way. And the more David blocks out and passes into me, the less opportunities I have to fill my graveyard proactively with 6s at all. If he just doesn't swing, I can't do it. So we're seeing myself in a very tough position here. But I do still have the Reckless Swing at least for a potential endgame win, but I'm not going to just pretend like that is a guarantee. So, honestly, Oldhim in a position like this should probably just never swing in. Just make Seismic Surge, Arsenal, and Passing until the Levia dies. You don't just want to play into a Reckless Swing, lose condition. So I can't really just bank on that, but I'm going to go ahead, play this Blood Rush, hoping that this attack is either going to let me have a wide turn, or this Blood Rush rather is going to let me either have a really wide turn or a really tall turn, because I have an Endless Maw in Arsenal right now, and an Endless Maw with Blood Rush and the Howl and its own ability comes in for 14, which is going to break the math of any hand other than, some really good Staunch responses, which I know at this point David's down at least 3 of them. And he's not running the red unmovables, but of course double red unmovable would do it. So that's the consideration here is, do I go ahead and try to swing first with a Claw, or just go for the Endless Maw? Because the situation was that I had a blue Barraging and a red Ghostly and 1 floating. So if I'd pitched the blue Barraging to swing Claws, yes, I would have had 2 left over, but then if he ice pitches me, the Ghostly goes back on top, and I can't pitch it for the Endless Maw. So it is not correct to go for the Claw first there, even though, of course, it's a lot more damage. So just going to forego that, because 14 should be enough to end the game still, as long as I hit. And I do hit, thank goodness. I had 3 misses, 1 hit. So there we see 3 buffs coming through for that 14 power Endless Maw. And I know going into this I was saying that Oldhim feels pretty favored for Levia, but honestly, having now rewatched this best of 3, I do think it's favored, right? But you are just always going to be met with the fact that your deck, with that, of course, option that it always has to just self-kill you, I mean, you're just living under that threat so much more often in this matchup than versus anything else, because the games are just going so long. So I would say for a novice Levia player, this matchup is going to feel a lot harder because of that reason. You really are under threat to kill yourself on Blood Debt, so improper grave management is going to hurt you like a truck. But there we go, the 14 damage really pulled through to end the game there, and always helps to hit on those graveyard banishes, because if you don't, you probably don't win. Have a good one.